I am back from my very long leave of absence, and while I kind of just dropped off in the middle of a series breaking down the Insomnia album, I want to come back with something a little bit more fun. And the subject of this video is the Mosh Pit. So despite my 5'11", 135-pound build, I do enjoy my fair share of moshing, but I noticed there's a pretty fine line between having a good time versus being downright reckless. So I just want to bring up some of my observations and talk a little bit about how I survive in the pit. Now, I don't want to make like a how-to guide sort of thing. It's more like tips and things that I've noticed. But if there are rules to moshing, rule number one really should be don't be an asshole, or equivalently, don't be an idiot. I'm not going to speak for hardcore grind shows, but metal is really about freedom, unleashing the self. No one really wants to end up in the emergency room. This isn't the octagon, punches, kicks, elbows, all that stuff's kind of bullshit. Sometimes I see people go low and mow through a crowd like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And if you go too far and cross somebody's line, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. Not that I really support that. I prefer if someone just got thrown out, and that's usually what happens. But if shit goes down, I'm not going to risk my ass and, get in the middle of a fight. It's the same thing if a 300-pound dude tries to stage dive. I'm not going to catch you. No one's strong enough to hold that weight, and if you don't know you're a fat ass, it's really on you. So along that line, the most important thing you can really do in a pit is to protect yourself. And I feel like I can give good advice on that because I get thrown around like a rag doll and I have my ways of staying alive. Ultimately, you're responsible for your own safety. It's the one thing that you have the most control over. And at the end of the day, it really boils down to being aware of what's going on around you. The worst thing that can happen in a show is someone gets trampled or crushed, followed by getting chopped low and blowing out your knees or, breaking some bones. I think the most dangerous place to be isn't actually in the pit itself, but in the front row. People are usually already packed up against the stage, and especially if it's a low stage, then it's going to be at knee level. No one's usually looking behind them, at the beginning of a set or something, and if a pit opens up, then people are going to get pushed over. Now, you're not going to have a good time if you're paranoid and just constantly checking over your shoulder. The best advice I can give is don't lock your knees and stay on your toes. Locking your knees is bad in general. That's how people wear out their joints when they get old, and then you have bad knees. You'll tear your ligaments if someone barrels into you. Being limber and staying on your toes is the best way to absorb a hit, especially if you get blindsided, because it's going to happen. You'll bounce off. Find your balance, stay outright. If you keep yourself grounded, you're just going to get knocked down or you're going to get tripped over the other way. So with that said, I want to move on to the next part. Starting a mosh pit. I think it takes at least 3 to start a mosh. 2 people going at each other is just a tragedy. But you can always tell who wants to go when a song starts to pick up and you see someone, looking around, taking up a little bit more space. They're probably waiting for something to happen. In this day and age, consent really is everything. And the easiest way to get it, I found, is just with simple forearm taps. Gentle push is an invitation to get pushed back, hopefully into someone else who's willing to then throw you back. Push turns to shove, and that's really all it takes. Again, I usually try to stay mindful of the people in the front row, so I never try to open a pit forwards. And for the same reason, I wouldn't go back either, because it's, I'm just going to end up getting pushed forward anyway, and it's the same thing. My personal favorite is when everybody's just packed real close. It's all shoulder to shoulder, bumping, and gradually grows into a huge synchronized motion. So there's a mosh pit going, now what? Things are always going to vary in intensity. Since the theme here is safety, I'll start with what to do when things get out of control. If you get slammed really hard, the quickest way to save your momentum is to turn. I guess it converts it into torque or something like that. I don't recommend grabbing anyone or anything. You'll get jerked, and that's an easy way to dislocate your shoulder, or you'll drag someone on top of you, which is also not something that you want to happen. If the crowd starts to get too rough, there's a pretty easy way to slow things down, and it basically follows the same principle. The trick is an old school football move, the stiff arm. Now, we're not aiming for the chin, but actually for the shoulder, and it's basically the same idea as before. If someone gets thrown really hard at you, you can divert their momentum by turning them, and you can do this large scale by spreading your hands out. Now on to protecting others. It's pretty common knowledge that if someone falls, you pick them back up. But there's really a limit to how useful you can actually be. I mean, if 2 other people are already helping lift somebody, a third pair of hands isn't really going to do anything useful. But if crowd control is necessary at some point, because not everybody notices and the people doing the lifting can't protect themselves, just put your hands out, slow things down until everything's under control. The same thing goes for the front row. If people are getting crushed, what I usually do is just pace back and forth and turn people into a circle. It's surprisingly easy, except when people in the front row mistakenly end up shoving you, but I don't know, I think that's the fun part. Now, I don't claim to be a pitmaster general. Everyone really just needs to do their own part. Get things under control and jump right back in. So now for the reverse, when things slow down and need to pick back up. You've got a bunch of people standing around, usually with a lot of open space, so I guess we just go back to square one. Just walk through the crowd, bump forearms, pat on the back. Eventually someone's going to take the bait. Remember that consent is everything. Just because someone was going nuts earlier doesn't mean they necessarily want to jump back in later. After all, it's a pretty intense workout. Sometimes I just take 5, go back to good old-fashioned headbanging. I didn't grow this out for nothing. But that's really all there is to it. I've never found mosh pits to be incredibly dangerous, except when there are a couple of assholes launching themselves, and that usually gets taken care of. I've probably fallen like twice, and I've never actually been hurt despite my frame. To add anything else, I guess you just keep the floor clean, beer cups and so on, I kick them to the side usually. Shoes and glasses are prone to getting lost. I always wear boots, and I keep my glasses in my pocket. They've always been fine. If someone loses their shit, I guess just let people know. Same deal as before. As a final note, I guess there's certain things that annoy me, like when people aren't synchronized to the music. I don't really see the point, and I hate when people go hard during the slow section and then completely miss the cue for the build-up. I think it ruins everything, but at the end of the day, it's all just good fun. So all I have to say is stay safe, wake up sore the next day, repeat.